Piers Morgan is normally in this time slot for obvious breaking news reasons. We didn't bring you his program from earlier in the day, but let's bring you the man himself. Following the announcement of Boris Johnson that he is resigning from the Prime Ministership, you saw it coming. You talked about it a long time on your own show. So welcome to your own time slot, live into Australia right now. Piers, what did you think of the way that Boris Johnson said farewell to the country?
I thought it was typical Boris Johnson. His farewell speech I thought was terrible. It was basically pumping himself up, boasting and bragging about his so-called achievements, blaming everybody but himself, effectively saying he'd been taken down by a herd mentality amongst his own politicians on his own party, and sort of taking no accountability for the real reasons why he's had to go, which is a massive breach of trust with not just the country and the electorate, but with his own MPs who just had enough. You know, it wasn't us that brought him down. It was his own side, his own people.
So what about this period of time that he expects to stay in office but not really have the power, to be the caretaker, to be the lame duck, but then he's holding cabinet meetings and presumably won't go quietly? That could take until, what, October?
Well, look, Boris Johnson will try and buy as much time as possible because he always thinks there's an opportunity to wriggle off the hook. He's known as the greasy piglet over here in Britain because of his ability to slide away from even the most avid hunters. So I think he's going to try and buy as much time as possible. But I get a real sense that the party realises that when you have almost the entire cabinet resigning because they've lost confidence in him and lost trust in him, why would you want him to actually be in charge for more than a day? So there is a mechanism for him to just stand down, which he may come under pressure to do with immediate effect, and Dominic Raab, who's the Deputy Prime Minister, to then take over. But the leadership battle is already up and running. Liz Truss has just flown back immediately from a foreign trip. She's a foreign secretary to run her leadership campaign. Other people are saying they want to run. And the way it works is you have to get, I think it's 8 Conservative MPs to support you to run for leader. And then all the candidates who manage to get to that threshold will then go into a kind of pot where MPs vote, and they whittle them down to the final 2. And when they have 2 of them, then it goes to the 100,000 or so Conservative members of the party, and those members will make the final call on who is then the new leader and Prime Minister.
So, no, all good, mate. So in 10 years' time, when we're talking about why Boris Johnson left, why he served barely about the same time as Theresa May, will it be the shorthand was he went because he was a liar, he went because of Partygate? Because obviously, you know, he can look back at this achievement and that achievement and he'll write about it in papers and books and do interviews. But how will he be remembered as a Prime Minister? Do they remember how it ends or they remember what it was about?
You know, he came in with a thumping majority, Paul, massive majority, December 2019. I was at a party a few days later where he crashed with all his top people. I've never seen a more jubilant bunch who thought they had this incredible mandate now from the electorate. They'd got Brexit done, they'd won a crushing majority, and everything seemed extremely rosy in the Boris Johnson garden. He was looking at maybe serving 10 years on the back of all this success. But here we are 2.5 years later, and he will go out as one of the worst, if not the worst, prime ministers that Britain's ever had. Certainly some political commentators are already saying that. So I think that the bottom line for Boris is he was done in by his own failings, his own character failings. This was really a question of him and the fact that he can't stop lying. People lost trust in him. He was presiding over this Partygate scandal where he was setting rules for everybody else to be locked down. And at the same time, all his Downing Street staff were partying every night, including on one occasion him. They all got fined by the police, over 80 of them, of Downing Street staff, for breaking the rules he had brought in. So I think there was rank hypocrisy there. And it's a tragedy for him in the sense that you could, if you were trying to defend him, say, well, look, he got Brexit done. He was very quick off the mark with COVID vaccines, which certainly gave Britain the lead after a very poor start in the pandemic early on. I think he managed to turn that around pretty well. Certainly he's led from the front with Ukraine, for example. President Zelensky's a big fan of Boris Johnson, thinks that Britain has really been leading the way in the whole of Europe in terms of supplying Ukrainians with the weaponry they need. So there are lots of things where you could say, well, he's done that well. But the problem is the endless scandals, and how ironic that in the end, Paul, Paul, Boris Johnson was brought down because he told a bunch of whoppers about a groper called Pincher. I don't think it could be a better epitaph for Boris Johnson than that.
Bloody oath. Piers, thank you so much, mate. We'll see your show, of course, here tomorrow night, and obviously Rip and Roaring in the same time slot next week. Thank you, mate.
All the best, Paul. Take care.
Thank you. Piers Morgan, best in the business, of course, joining us from the UK.